The cameras were rolling, but the silence in the room was almost sacred. For months, everyone had been waiting for this moment, the moment when CanYaman's mother, a woman who had always chosen to stay in the shadows, would finally speak. She had been the quiet strength behind her son's success, the one who saw him through the storms of fame, heartbreak, and endless rumors. And now, for the first time, she was ready to say what millions of fans had been whispering for years. The interviewer leaned forward gently, almost afraid to break the fragile air between them. "Mrs. Goldem, everyone remembers the chemistry between Can and Demet. Do you think there's still a chance they could?" She didn't even let him finish. Her lips curved into a soft, bittersweet smile. "If they fall in love again," she began, her voice trembling, "I wouldn't be surprised. Some connections never truly fade. You can't unfeel something that real." The audience watching from home froze. The comment section exploded within seconds. Fans couldn't believe what they had just heard. After years of silence, after the breakup, the distance, the rumors, Can's own mother had just reignited the hope that never really died. But her words didn't come from a place of gossip. They came from love, from experience, from a mother who had seen everything. She had watched Can come home after long nights of filming or Kenzie cuss, his eyes still carrying the spark of a man who was falling in love for real, not just on screen. She had noticed how he'd smile differently when Demet's name came up, how he'd defend her even when the media tried to twist her image. And later, when everything fell apart, she was the one who saw him breaking quietly. Fame had taken a toll, but losing Demet had taken something deeper, something that no success could replace. "When you see two souls that close," she continued softly, "you just know. You can't fake that kind of bond. They may have chosen different paths, but I believe fate has its own timing." The journalist didn't know how to respond. Even the crew members behind the cameras looked moved. There was something raw in her honesty, no PR filter, no careful phrasing. Just a mother's truth. For years, Can and Demet had avoided talking openly about each other. Every time someone brought up the topic, they would smile politely, change the subject, or simply walk away. But behind that silence, there was a story, one that only those closest to them truly understood. Now, with just one sentence, Yaman had reopened an old wound, and maybe, a door that had never fully closed. Social media went wild. Clips of the interview flooded Instagram and TikTok. Fan pages started sharing old photos of Can and Demet, the way they'd laugh between takes, the way they'd hold each other's gaze when they thought no one was watching. Hashtags like #CanDemetForever and #IfTheyFallInLoveAgain started trending within hours. But for those who really knew Can, they also knew this. Behind the fame, behind the cameras, there was still a man who had never completely moved on. That night, after the interview aired, the internet became a sea of emotions. Clips of Can's mother's words spread across every platform. Fans were crying, others were analyzing every syllable, and some swore they saw tears in her eyes when she said, "If they fall in love again." Meanwhile, somewhere far from the noise, CanYaman himself was sitting in silence. He hadn't expected his mother to speak publicly. She had always protected his privacy, especially when it came to Demet. But when he saw the headlines, something inside him stirred. He played the clip again and again, not as an actor, not as a celebrity, but as a man who once loved deeply. He could hear her voice trembling with emotion, and for a second, he was back in those days, the early mornings on set, the laughter between takes, the long conversations about dreams and fears. He remembered how Demet would bring him coffee when the shoot ran late, how she'd scold him playfully for working too much. Those were memories no fame could erase. Demet, too, had seen the interview. She was on set in Istanbul, filming her new project, when her phone began buzzing endlessly. Messages from friends, fans, even reporters. "Did you see what Can's mother said?" they asked. At first, she ignored them. But curiosity, and something deeper, made her click on the link. When she heard those words, she froze. It wasn't just nostalgia. It was like someone had reached into her chest and touched an old scar. She remembered that woman's kindness, how Can's mother had welcomed her into their home with warmth, how she'd cooked dinner for them both after long shooting days. It wasn't just a professional relationship back then, it was something that had felt like family. Demet took a deep breath and turned off the phone. For a moment, she sat in complete stillness. If they fall in love again, she whispered the words softly to herself, almost afraid of how much they still hurt. Friends around her noticed she was quieter that day. Between takes, she'd stare off into space, lost in thought. Some on set even said her eyes looked glassy, as if she had been crying. But Demet wasn't one to show weakness. She smiled, did her job, laughed when needed, but inside, she was spinning. Later that evening, her assistant found her sitting alone in her dressing room. The lights were dim, the makeup half removed, and her script lay forgotten on the table. She was scrolling through old photos, her and Ken on set, laughing uncontrollably during a blooper, standing close at the wrap party, his arm resting gently around her shoulders. There was one picture she stopped on. It was taken by a crew member who had caught them looking at each other between takes, no posing, no performance. Just a glance filled with something undeniable. She saved that picture again. She didn't know why. Maybe because, deep down, she knew that some stories never really end, they just pause. Back in Rome, Ken sat on his balcony, phone in hand, reading comments under the interview. They belonged together. His mother said what we all feel. Please, Ken, call her. He smiled faintly, shaking his head. It wasn't that simple. Too much had happened. Too much pride, too much silence, too much distance. And yet, hearing his mother speak had stirred something dangerous. Hope. He leaned back, looked up at the night sky, and whispered to himself, if we ever fall in love again, maybe this time, I won't run. The following morning, Turkish tabloids went wild. Headlines screamed across social media, CanYaman's mother gives hope to fans. Demet Özdemir reacts in silence, what does it mean? Every entertainment site wanted to know, was something really happening again between them? But what most people didn't see was the quiet storm behind closed doors. Can's phone had not stopped ringing, friends, journalists, even his management. Everyone wanted a statement. Yet Can, as always, stayed silent. He didn't post, didn't comment, didn't deny. Instead, he disappeared into his own world, his gym, his scripts, his long motorcycle rides through Rome's empty streets. He wasn't angry at his mother. Not at all. He knew she had spoken from her heart. In fact, her words reminded him of something he had long buried. There was a letter. A letter Demet had written to him years ago, before everything fell apart. It wasn't a love letter in the traditional sense, there were no dramatic declarations or promises. It was simple, honest, and painfully real. She had written it one night after an argument, the kind that only happens between people who care too much. Can, sometimes I feel like you're trying to run faster than life itself, but love isn't a race, it's the place you come back to when everything else fades. If one day we get lost in different worlds, promise me you won't forget that we once found something real. He still had it. Folded, hidden inside an old script from Erkenci Kuss. He took it out that night, the paper slightly yellowed, the ink faded, but her handwriting still sharp, alive. As he read, he felt that familiar ache in his chest, the one he thought fame had cured. Meanwhile, Demet's closest friend, Asli, tried to comfort her. Demet, you know the media, they'll twist everything. Don't let it get to you. But Demet only smiled faintly. It's not the media that got to me, she said quietly. It's her. His mother. She always saw something between us that even we were afraid to admit. Asli tilted her head. Do you still think about him? Demet didn't answer right away. Her eyes drifted toward the window, where the rain had begun to fall. Sometimes, she finally said. When I hear his name. When I see old interviews. When I pass by places we used to go. It's not about wanting to go back, it's about wondering what could have been if we hadn't been so afraid. That night, Demet couldn't sleep. She opened her phone again, and before she could stop herself, she searched his name. Photos of Ken flooded her screen, red carpet events, Italian TV shows, smiling fans surrounding him. But there was one image that caught her off guard, a recent picture of him in Rome, standing alone near the Colosseum. The caption read, lost in thought, looking at something only he can see. She stared at it for minutes. Maybe he was thinking about his mother's words, maybe, about her across the sea. In that same moment, Ken was scrolling through old photos too, and stopped at one of her, laughing uncontrollably during a behind-the-scenes video, the same smile that used to light up every corner of his world. For a second, both of them, miles apart, felt the same pull. That invisible thread between two souls who had loved once, and maybe, still did. Days passed, but the world didn't calm down. If anything, the storm grew stronger. Every entertainment page, every YouTube channel, every fan account was now talking about one thing: CanYaman's mother's words. Some claimed it was a message, others said it was a sign. Fans started tagging both Can and Demet in the same posts again, reviving memories everyone thought had been buried long ago. But while social media screamed, their hearts whispered, Can couldn't shake off his mother's voice. Her words played in his head every time he tried to sleep. If they fall in love again, it wasn't just a sentence. It was a mirror, reflecting everything he had lost, everything he had run from. He thought about calling Demet, he thought about it every single night, but pride, that quiet enemy, always stopped him. He told himself it had been too long, that maybe she had moved on, that maybe reaching out would only reopen old wounds. One night, however, fate intervened in its quiet, cruel way. Ken was invited to a private charity gala in Istanbul, a last-minute appearance. His management insisted, and he finally gave in. Just a few hours, he said. Then I'm leaving. He didn't know that Demet would be there too. When he arrived, cameras flashed, reporters shouted his name. The elegant crowd turned to look at him, the star, the mystery, the man everyone still couldn't quite figure out. He smiled politely, posed, and made his way inside, and then, silence, because across the room, standing under the warm lights of the hall, was Demet. For a moment, time stopped, the noise faded. The flashes dimmed. It was just them, the same two souls. Years later, standing on different sides of the same room, she was wearing a simple black dress, her hair pulled back, eyes calm yet unreadable. When she noticed him, her lips parted slightly, not in surprise, but in something softer. Recognition. He froze, his hand still in midair, unsure whether to wave or turn away. But then, as if guided by something greater than either of them, she smiled. It wasn't a big smile, just a small, knowing one. The kind that says, I see you. I remember. They didn't speak immediately. Not even when they ended up at the same table later that evening. The conversation around them was polite, formal, meaningless. But every so often, their eyes met, and in those few seconds, everything they hadn't said for years spoke louder than words. When the dinner ended, Demet excused herself and stepped outside to the terrace for air. The night was cool, the Bosphorus shimmering below. She leaned on the railing, lost in thought, and then, a voice behind her, Demet. She turned slowly. Ken was standing there, hands in his pockets, nervous, uncertain, but there. For a second, neither spoke. The wind carried the sounds of the city below, faint music, distant laughter. Finally, Demet broke the silence. You came back. He nodded, taking a small step closer. Just for a few days. Your mother, she began softly. He smiled faintly. Yeah. She started all this, didn't she? Demet laughed quietly, looking down. She always had a way of saying what no one else dared to. He studied her face, the same eyes, the same warmth. She told the truth, he said simply. Some things never really fade. The air between them thickened with everything left unsaid. Years of distance, pain, pride, and underneath it all, the love that refused to die. Demet met his gaze. Then why did we let it go? Can's voice was low, almost a whisper. Because back then, we didn't know how to hold on. For a long moment, they stood there in silence, the kind that says more than words ever could. The night air carried a quiet electricity. They hadn't spoken in years, yet standing there, beneath the stars, under the weight of everything unspoken, it felt as if time had folded in on itself. The laughter, the arguments, the sleepless nights on set, the way their hands used to find each other without thinking, all of it was right there between them, invisible but real. Ken took a breath. I saw what my mom said, he began softly. At first, I didn't know how to feel. But when I watched it again, I realized, maybe she wasn't talking about the past. Maybe she was talking about what still lives inside us. Demet looked at him, eyes glistening. You always find a way to say the right thing too late, she whispered, half smiling, half crying. He stepped closer. Maybe this time, it's not too late. She shook her head gently. Can, we've changed. We're not who we used to be. I know, he said quietly. But maybe that's exactly why it could work now. Because now we know what it means to lose something real. For a moment, she couldn't speak. The wind brushed her hair across her face, and he instinctively reached out, the same way he used to. His fingers hesitated, then brushed the strand aside. It was such a small gesture, but it carried years of history. The world around them seemed to disappear. It wasn't about fame, or projects, or gossip anymore. It was about two people who had once found something extraordinary, and were now brave enough to look at it again. Demet took a deep breath. Do you ever think about how different things could have been? Every day, he admitted. But maybe everything had to happen this way. Maybe we needed the distance to understand what it meant. There was a pause, long, fragile, full of meaning. Then, Demet smiled, that same smile that used to undo him. Your mother, she always believed in us. He smiled back, eyes soft. She still does. For a while, they just stood there, no cameras, no scripts, no audience. Just two hearts finding their way back to the truth. When Demet finally turned to leave, Can called after her softly, Demet. She stopped but didn't turn. If we fall in love again, his voice broke slightly, this time, I won't let it slip away. She closed her eyes, a single tear tracing down her cheek. Then make sure it's real, she whispered. Because if it happens again, I won't survive losing it twice. And with that, she walked away into the night, leaving him standing there, eyes glistening with a mix of hope and regret. But even as she disappeared into the soft glow of the city lights, something had changed. The silence between them wasn't heavy anymore, it was alive, trembling with possibilities. The next morning, fans woke up to a single new photo on Can's Instagram. It wasn't dramatic. No captions, no hashtags. Just a simple picture of the Bosphorus at dawn. And one sentence beneath it, some stories never end. They just wait for the right chapter. Within minutes, the world went wild. Demet didn't comment. She didn't post anything. But hours later, she was seen wearing the same silver bracelet she had once received from Can during her Kenzie cuss. The internet didn't need words, it already understood, because sometimes, love doesn't fade. It pauses, it heals, and when the time is right, it finds its way back. And somewhere, watching from home, Can's mother smiled softly, her eyes full of peace. Because in her heart, she had always known the truth. If they fall in love again, she whispered to herself, this time, it will be forever.